Bruh. I'm just trying to be famous. Greetings, faithful viewers. Welcome to the back seat behind me. And I want to give you my briefest of opinions about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. So I really don't feel like rehashing a lot of stuff that I posted in an old video. Actually, I'm going to put right there. An old video that I did about guns and self-defense, and I even brought on a guest in that video, an unfair representation of Joshua Porter from the band Showbread. But I also have a video that I want to recommend on moral injury from a fellow Lutheran pastor. You can check that out there. It's actually pretty good and actually talks a lot about the moral injury aspect of what Kyle Rittenhouse did. Suffice it to say, I think that Kyle Rittenhouse was within not only the bounds of the United States law when it comes to self-defense, but also there is an aspect of the Christian faith that does allow you to defend yourself and to defend your own livelihood, your own life, your own property. Again, I don't want to rehash anything that I've already talked about in the previous video, but I also don't want to rehash anything in a better video that I hope you guys will check out. Again, links in the description and so on. What I really wanted to do is to contemplate, to a certain extent, the Eighth Commandment. Yes, the Eighth Commandment. Now, why focus on the Eighth Commandment? Why focus on the commandment that says, do not bear false witness, rather than say, oh, the Fifth Commandment, thou shalt not murder, and how does self-defense relate to the Fifth Commandment? Well, again, don't want to rehash a whole lot of stuff. You can check out my other video for a solid argument on self-defense. To put it briefly, self-defense is not murder. You know, you're not murdering somebody if it's self-defense. No, instead I want to focus on the Eighth Commandment, and an idea, a concept even, of one screen and two movies being played. In other words, you can see a lot of people, we're all watching the same thing, and if you happen to be watching the trial live, I mean, they are live streaming the entire trial, we can see both the same facts, we can see the same things happening on the screen, but there's two different movies playing, in whether that you be for Kyle Rittenhouse or against Kyle Rittenhouse. And so my big emphasis when it comes to the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, and really anything, especially in American politics, is to keep in mind the fact that bearing false witness against your neighbor also means a neighbor that you're probably not physically aligned with, politically aligned with, anything like that. And to always be aware of cognitive dissonance, bias, anything like that, because ultimately you have the duty as a Christian, and especially Lutherans, you know your small catechism, defend your neighbor and speak well of him, always putting the best construction on things. So that's something we need to understand, whether you agree with the actions of Kyle Rittenhouse or not, and always understand that because we don't always see everything perfectly, and everybody is watching the same screen when it comes to this trial, but we're seeing two different movies, if you will. We're seeing what we want to see in some sense, and this is a both sides issue. But again, I don't want to make this video about self-defense. I've already covered that. I don't necessarily want to make this video about moral injury because someone else already covered that. What I want to say is, remember the Eighth Commandment. And I think that the Eighth Commandment has been dredged through the mud when it comes to the prosecution. The prosecuting attorneys were absolutely insane when it came to some of their arguments, but some people, again, watching the same screen and having two different movies playing, someone else is going to see differently. But ultimately, Jesus says he's the way, the truth, and the life, and Christians are supposed to be people of the truth. And so ultimately, we have to remember that, especially remember the Eighth Commandment when it comes to situations like this, when it comes to maybe someone in a situation that is not an easy thing. And one of the things I actually liked from the defense's closing argument is there are no winners in this scenario. Nobody that wins. Kyle is obviously traumatized from it. There were people that had lost their lives, whether it was justified that they lose their lives or not. And, it's just not easy, and it's not easy living in this sinful, fallen world. But what we can do with the aid of the Holy Spirit, though we are poor, miserable sinners, we are called to be like Christ and because Christ is the truth, we ought to seek truth in all things and not bear false witness against our neighbor. That's about it, and again, maybe you understood what I was getting at. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. If you have any ideas about self-defense, moral injury, or the Eighth Commandment, please leave them in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe and all that jazz. Check out the videos that I got linked in the description. My older video on self-defense and should Christians be owning guns, and also check out the video on moral injury. I think it was really well done. Again, the moral injury video is not mine. It's another Lutheran pastor. Another Lutheran pastor that's not in the diocese I'm in, but I still think the video is really good. So check it out. I got to come up with some sort of outro for these videos, so I'll be doing what I usually do on the live streams, which is to say, get God-pilled. And until next time.